Retirement planning isn't about one thing. It's about many things working together, like reducing your taxes, maximizing your Social Security benefits, safely generating income, and estate planning. And when everything works together, it can put you in the fast lane to becoming financially independent. You've seen him featured in Bloomberg Business, Fortune, Money, and other publications throughout Los Angeles and Palm Springs. Broadcasting from the Inland Empire, it's Rick Rivera and the Big Picture Retirement Show.
Welcome into the Big Picture Retirement Show with Rick Rivera. Rick is a partner at Safeguard Investment Advisory Group, has over 20 years experience in the financial industry. You can always go to the website to learn more, safeguardinvestment.com. The team's always got events that are coming up that maybe you want to attend. Most of the time there's no cost to attend. Might be a topic that you want to learn more about. You can find that about Rick and Reed and Eddie and the team, safeguardinvestment.com. I'm Mark Elliott. Glad you're with us. Today we're talking legacy planning. We're going to do so on the program today and how important it is and what all that entails. But if you have any questions about this or some other area of your retirement, you can always call the team at Safeguard 800-700-1980. 800-700-1980. All right, Rick, you're an estate planning attorney. You have all kinds of legal expertise, law school and all that, right?
I don't have that, but I know somebody that does.
And that's what you do. When it comes to legacy planning, because we were talking before the show that you actually have done some podcasts with your estate planning attorney, and all you have to do is search for on YouTube, Safeguard Investment Advisory Group, and all your podcasts will come up, right?
Yeah, we have a bunch of different podcasts talking about a variety of different topics. And specifically, I did 2 podcasts with the attorney that we deal with directly. His name is Joseph Hudak, and he specializes in trusts, wills, power of attorneys, all those types of documents. And I actually did 2 podcasts. The first one I did with him was kind of more of like an introduction to what trust and wills are. And, we always get the question from a lot of people, hey, do I need a trust? Do I need a will? What's the difference? So in the first podcast, we kind of went into all the basics and kind of definitions of different terms and things like that. So anybody listening to the show, if they're kind of wanting to understand some of the basics, that's a good podcast to listen to. And then I did a second one with them where, we took it a little bit further and went deeper into, trust ideas and different reasons why people might use a trust and the differences between trusts, A trust versus B trust. So it's a little bit more in detail. So I kind of think of that first podcast is more of 101. And then the second podcast is, after you listen to the first one, then the second podcast kind of like 102,
Yeah.
So it's good information.
Yeah. So again, if you would like to just go to YouTube, search for Safeguard Investment Advisory Group, and you'll find those podcasts that Rick is talking about. So it'll be an opportunity for you to go a little bit deeper than what we might today. We're going to talk about wills and trusts and all that. We're going to do that in the next segment. Basically, legacy planning, I guess, there's a lot of different areas in this, legacy, estate planning, and all of that. What are some of the basic questions we probably need to ask ourselves on this topic?
When it comes to legacy planning, it's really going to be, hey, once I've won the comfortable retirement and I have everything in order for myself and my wife, or myself and my spouse, I should say, whatever is left over, how do I want it to go? Like, do I want it to go to the kids? Or, what do I want to leave behind as my legacy? And there's several questions that we need to ask ourselves. What would be the objective? And here's the point. If you have, let's say, for example, a special needs child, or, you're passionate about a foundation, then there's certain ways to handle that. Some people that I sit down with, they might say, hey, Rick, listen, if there happens to be something left over, of course I want it to go to the kids, but I'm not looking to do without in order to leave a bunch of money behind. So then we would handle that a different way. So literally, we would sit down with somebody, ask them, a variety of questions, figure out what their objectives are, and then design it around their specific situation. That's the advantage of legacy planning and trust planning. Especially, I had somebody the other day that they said, hey, listen, you know what? My kid, if they get this money, they're going to blow it all. So they wanted more of a spendthrift provision within their trust and will planning, their legacy planning, to make sure there's somebody in charge to dole that money out in the most appropriate way. And and because we're in this industry every day, especially if you have a special needs child, maybe they're receiving government subsidies, and we want to make sure that whatever they inherit doesn't interfere with whatever government subsidies that they may be receiving. So now that may need to be set up in a different way. And then, of course, let's say somebody has a huge estate and they're worried about estate taxes. Well, that might be, again, need to be set up in a different way. So really, it's a good idea that if you haven't done any type of planning at all in that area, or maybe you already have, to sit down with somebody that specializes with it, or give us a call, and we can sit down, we can look at your overall situation, and then just make sure, you're dotting all the I's and crossing all the T's when it comes to that.
And if you'd like to do that, sit down with Rick and the team at Safeguard Investment Advisory Group. There is no cost. It's complimentary. 800-700-1980. 800-700-1980. Now, you walk people through, your clients at Safeguard, the big picture blueprint: income, investment, taxes, healthcare, legacy planning. How does legacy get in there? I think a lot of times, really, retirement depends on your income, right? You have to have the income to replace the paychecks that are no longer coming in. But we can't wait till we're 80 to do legacy planning. So how does that fit into that big picture blueprint, the legacy aspect?
That's actually, I'm glad you brought it up, because it just triggered something in my head. And when we talk about legacy planning, automatically, people's first thought is, hey, what are we going to leave to all the kids, or what are we going to leave their family? When we talk about legacy planning as well, we also have to think about the surviving spouse, because part of legacy planning is making sure that if one spouse, should predecease the other spouse is not, left out to dry. So we need to, and what I mean by that is that could mean, what if one spouse needs long-term care and now all the assets are being spent down because that planning wasn't done? Or what if, pensions were cut and Social Security was cut, and now the surviving spouse doesn't have enough assets to offset the loss of income or some other things. So first, we make sure, once again, husband and wife are taken care of, and that the surviving spouse, from a legacy standpoint, is also taken care of. And then from that point on, then we discuss the kids and the foundations, or whatever you're truly passionate about. And then we can design it, around you. But if I'm going to talk about legacy, I definitely got to make sure that, yeah, you're right. Once we win that comfortable retirement, let's make sure that if one spouse predeceases the other, we don't get caught by any surprises. And if it is a matter of leaving money behind to children and heirs, let's make sure we do it in the most efficient way that doesn't cause any problems, doesn't cause any issues. And because we've been doing this and we specialize with retirees, we've seen so many situations that we can literally sit down with somebody and say, hey, here's some things that we've learned in our industry and we've seen other clients go through, that we can make you aware of, where you can kind of head things off at the pass. So again, you're not caught by surprises. We can mitigate issues that could occur because we specialize in this area, and we can share ideas that other clients have gone through, that maybe you're in the same situation with what they've been able to do in order to maximize what's going to the kids, and also tax efficiently as well. It's one thing to leave, money behind to the kids and foundation, but it's another thing to make sure that we leave it to them tax efficiently.
And you never see anybody do this improperly, do you? Everybody always nails this, gets it perfect.
That's also another very good question, or a good statement. Yeah, let me kind of run into a quick scenario where I do see mistakes happen. A lot of times, I'll run into a client. They'll say, "Hey, Rick, you know what? I was working out at the gym, and my buddy at the gym, he's a real estate agent, or he works, someplace, and he told me that all I got to do is put the kids on the deed of my home, and that'll avoid probate, and just put them on my accounts, and that'll avoid probate. So I went ahead and did that. I don't have to set up a trust, and I can save myself some money." Well, here's the thing, folks. When you do that, yeah, it'll avoid the probate process. But the challenge that you have is that now when you put somebody on the deed of your home, They own it like you do. Those accounts, they own it like you do. So now, if God forbid they get a divorce, they get sued, anything at all that happens to you, those assets become subject to those types of things. The other thing as well is that they don't get a tax advantage. When somebody passes away, the home, the stocks, the investments, they get a step up in basis. So to the point where you can mitigate or eliminate taxes when they inherit it. But if you put the kids on the deed or on the accounts, now they receive it at your cost basis. When they go to sell it, potentially they have a lot of capital gains to pay. So there's some, there's different ways to skin a cat, but there's different ways to do it where it's more efficiently, done a lot more efficient. So yeah, I do see, unfortunately, a lot of mistakes like that.
So really, at the end of the day, it's about doing this in the right way. Now, certainly there are people that their goal is to bounce their last check. Well, that's going to be really hard to do. You're probably going to end up with something when you pass away. But the idea is whatever you want to do, you want to leave money to your kids, leave money to the charities, whatever it is, it's do it in the right way and make sure that all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted. And Rick and their estate planning attorney can walk you through all of this, but it's still, at the end of the day, it's your decision. Well, how do you want to leave things? Who gets what? How's it going to play out? Rick and the team can walk you through this. Again, there's no cost to chat with them. It's 800-700-1980. There's no obligation. There's no pressure either. 800-700-1980. And when we come back, we're going to talk about wills and powers of attorney and trust and all that kind of stuff. How in the world do we even figure out what we actually need? Rick's going to clear all that up for us when we come back. Again, the number, 800-700-1980. Rick Rivera back with more of the Big Picture Retirement Show right after this.
Rick wants to buy you dinner. Join the Safeguard Investment Advisory Group team for great food and conversation about retirement's biggest concerns. Sign up now for their next dinner seminar by calling 800-700-1980. That's 800-700-1980.
According to the U.S. Debt Clock, in the time you hear this commercial, our nation's debt will go up by $1.5 million. That's more than $2 billion a day. Right now, our debt is over $34 trillion and climbing fast. The question is, how do we pay it off? One of the most likely answers is increasing taxes. Now think about your retirement accounts. Do you want to pay taxes on some of that money now when rates are historically low, or later when rates are potentially higher? Whether you should pay taxes now or in retirement depends on a lot of things. Rick Rivera and the team at Safeguard Investment Advisory Group know what to look for. Rick can help you create a plan so your retirement is as tax efficient as possible. Call 800-700-1980 to set up a tax strategy session with Rick Rivera and Safeguard Investment Advisory Group. When taxes go up, will you be ready? Call now, 800-700-1980. Investment advisory services offered through Safeguard Investment Advisory Group, LLC, a registered investment advisor firm. Firm may not give tax advice.
Are you taking on more risk with your savings than you should? Find out right now at safeguardinvestment.com. That's safeguardinvestment.com.
Welcome back to the Big Picture Retirement Show with Rick Rivera. Rick is a partner at Safeguard Investment Advisory Group. I'm Mark Elliott. Glad you're with us. If you have any questions, we're talking legacy planning today. It is 800-700-1980. But maybe you have other questions about retirement. Well, what about Social Security? How do I do that? What about Medicare? What decision do I make there? What about, do I have enough to be able to retire, and when can I retire? I'd like to know that too. The Safeguard Investment Advisory Group is here to help you figure all of this stuff out. I'll walk side by side with you, be on the same side of the table as you. 800-700-1980. So, Rick, today we're talking legacy planning, and you've thrown out wills and trusts so far. There's powers of attorney for healthcare, for finances. What do we need? Will and living will, I don't even know the difference. I suppose you can have a will that's when you passed away, a living will while you're alive, but can you kind of walk us through some of these documents?
Yeah, absolutely. So, real briefly, and again, it's also a very common question that we get. Some people say, well, Rick, what's the difference between a will? What's the difference between a trust? And I'll briefly explain those differences. When you have a will, basically what it's going to do is it's just going to say, hey, listen, when I pass on, here's how I want my assets to go. Now, the challenge with the will, depending upon your asset size and what state you're living in, if is going to determine if that estate goes through probate. So what happens is the state of California, in this case, would come in, freeze your assets when you pass away. They want to make sure all your debts are paid, establish clear title to the property, and then they will distribute the assets according to your will. So if we want to avoid probate, that's where the living trust comes in. So a living trust is a legal entity that owns your assets, owns the home, owns the accounts and things of that nature. So when you pass on the asset, the trust owns the assets. It's a legal entity. When you pass on, your successor trustee, the person you put in charge, now can just take over and actually make sure that everything is settled correctly and pass on the assets to your beneficiaries, avoiding the probate process. Now, whenever somebody sets up a trust or a will, in order for, again, the trust is a legal entity. So the way I describe it, it's almost like a corporation. If the president of the corporation dies, the corporation doesn't go through probate. The vice president just steps up and takes control. It's just kind of like the same thing with the living trust. Now, any assets that are under the trust are in control of the trust, and you're in full control of it. So you spend money and do everything just like you would if you didn't have a trust. Where the will comes into play is that it says, hey, listen, there's something called a pour over will that kind of goes with the trust. And what that does is it just says, hey, listen, anything you forget to put in your trust, you meant for it to be there. So it acts like a safety net for you. Because again, your home, your assets need to be in that trust in order for those assets to avoid probate. But if you don't have those assets under the name of the trust, it would be subject to probate, and you need a will to take it through the probate process. So generally, when trusts are done, the attorneys will always do what's called a pour over will. As long as all the assets are in the trust, the will never come into play. It's only if you forgot to put something into it. Now, the other thing that dovetails into all that is also making sure that you have a power of attorney for asset management and also a power of attorney for healthcare. The power of attorney for asset management is going to allow your loved ones to manage your financial affairs in the event you cannot do it yourself. So let's say, for example I give in the workshop is, let's say your spouse is, in the hospital, and now you need $5,000 out of your spouse's IRA or 401k or SEP or whatever. You don't own that jointly with your spouse. So if you call up the broker and say, hey, listen, I need $5,000 out of my husband's retirement account or my spouse's retirement account, they're going to say, sorry, you don't own that jointly with your spouse. Do you have a power of attorney? And the same thing with real estate transactions. Let's say, you have rentals, or maybe you're selling a home, you're in the middle of escrow, documents need to be signed, and your spouse is in the hospital or they're incapable of signing. How are you going to do it? Well, you need a power of attorney. And then, of course, what dovetails into that is making sure that you have a healthcare medical directive that allows your loved ones to make medical decisions for you in the event you can't do it yourself. So you can set it up pretty much however you want. You can say, hey, listen, I want my spouse to do it for me, but if they can't do it, I want this specific child to be their backup. So you can set up backups or different kids to serve together. So there's different ways you can go, but this is all to make your life a lot easier, because, one of the things that we say is you could have the best investment in the world, making you 15% every day. But what good is it if your own wife can't access those accounts while you're in the hospital and she needs the money? That 15% isn't going to do you any good. Or it's all stuck in probate. Or, now, we're paying a bunch of taxes because the tax planning isn't done properly. So it all really kind of ties in together.
And it really, at the end of the day, you're doing it for the benefit of your family. I mean, you're trying to head off squabbles, especially in today's world of blended families. I mean, the beneficiaries need to be up to date. I mean, you walk people through all of that, I'm sure.
Oh, no, absolutely. And the great thing about these documents, by having the healthcare power of attorneys and all this, it mitigates even bickering. And I'll give you, a quick example. Again, being in this industry, this is where we share ideas with clients and make them aware of certain things that could potentially happen. You have to realize when it comes to making your medical decisions, you have more than one child, and medical decisions need to be made for mom or dad. Guess what? These kids don't always agree. So now there's bickering back and forth. So one of the things that we make sure our clients have is a quality of life directive. That way you can technically choose how you want to be medically treated under a variety of different scenarios. That way there's no guesswork for the kids. They can say, okay, well, you know what? Under this condition, mom would want this. Under this condition, dad would want that. And a story that I tell all my clients, and a story that I tell, people when I meet them and I'm talking about these documents, is my wife and I, prior to filling out, these quality life directives, one of the questions on the document is, hey, listen, how important is pain control? And I was telling my wife, I go, listen, I'm like a baby. Knock me out, wake me up when it's all over, give me all the drugs. My wife tells me, listen, if I'm not going to be clear-headed or clear thinking, I don't want as much or maybe none at all. I didn't know she felt that way. When it came to donation of body parts, I was like, oh, yeah, take whatever you want. I used to drive a Harley. I was like, yeah, let them take whatever they want. She's like, oh, no, I don't want them taking stuff out of me. So we actually had differences. So this helped to clarify a lot of that, and it makes it so much easier for the kids. And we guide clients through this and help them through that whole exercise and that process.
Yeah, you got to have a conversation. Yeah, you need to have a conversation with your family. Let them know what's going to happen, kind of how it plays out, I suppose. 800-700-1980 if you'd like to chat with Rick and the team at Safeguard Investment Advisory Group and kind of get this stuff done. And you can't wait till you're 80 to do it because you don't know when. The average age of a widow in the U.S. is 59 years of age. I'm still amazed by that number. I thought it'd be 75 or something like that, but it's 59. Right. So you don't know when. So the idea is you need a strategy. You need a plan. 800-700-1980. Rick and the team work in this area all the time, and they're here to help you. 800-700-1980. When you think about this, Rick, it's kind of like when you do the big picture blueprint. You walk people through income, investment, taxes, healthcare, legacy planning, all of that. Every year, basically, you're probably going to make sure that we're still on the right track. It's kind of the same thing with this. When you put a legacy plan together, it's not like, well, now it's good forever because things happen. So is it always like just an annual checkup type?
You know what? Once again, I'm glad you brought that up because that's such a great question. Because yes, when you originally established a trust, time goes on and things are going to change, and it could be something, property is sold, new property is bought, accounts are closed out, new accounts are opened. Sometimes, relationships change, let's face it, within the family. And so all of those things may require the a trust to be modified, or it may require amendments to be done. Also, as time goes on, you may decide, hey, listen, you know what? Maybe my kids are going to get everything equally, but maybe there's specific items or gifts that have sentimental value that I want to leave to specific individuals. Maybe you have a coin collection, gun collection, jewelry, whatever it is that you want to leave to specific individuals. Now you can specify, hey, these items go to these specific individuals. That way, when your kids are settling the estate, they know, okay, these items go to these individuals, everything else we divide up equally. The other thing that we do is that we make sure that these documents are electronically filed. So if, God forbid, nobody carries these documents everywhere they go, but God forbid you're traveling and you need these documents in a moment's notice. Let's say you're in the hospital, we have a way where you can actually electronically get them to the hospital. Or if, God forbid, we had these fires in California and people's documents got burnt up, well, at least you have an electronic copy so you can reproduce those documents. So yeah, we cover all those bases. So, if anybody has questions on any of these things, or you have questions about, setting up your own trust or wills, or, just want to get some ideas and make sure you're not missing anything, or maybe you already have these documents and you just want a second opinion on how yours are structured because maybe you got it done like a long time ago and a lot of circumstances have changed, just give us a call directly. Call us toll free, 800-700-1980. And I'd be happy to even offer you an hour free consultation, leave your checkbooks and all that behind. You come in and see me. And I can guarantee you that, within 45 minutes, again, I've been doing this long enough that I can give you 2 ideas that'll enhance whatever it is that you're doing. And again, just give us a call, 800-700-1980. And don't forget to check us out on YouTube at Safeguard Investment Advisory Group.
Guessing is rarely a good strategy, especially when it comes to retirement planning. So, when it comes to Social Security, don't guess. Get a plan so you can maximize your benefit. The Safeguard team can help with that. Call them today, 800-700-1980. That's 800-700-1980.
Firm offers insurance services. Safeguard Investment Advisory Group, LLC is a registered investment advisory firm. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims-paying abilities of the issuing carrier. This radio show is intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual situation. Safeguard Investment Investment Advisory Group, LLC is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during this show shall constitute tax or legal advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. The information and opinions contained herein provided by third parties have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by Safeguard Investment Advisory Group, LLC. This radio show is a paid placement.